unusual time in Italy. I met a footballer who lives in a clothes shop.
This is my car. It's wonderful to have such a good parking space in the middle of Milan.
Discovered the origins of the beautiful game.
I just wish Mommy kid with me.
Learned the secrets of the hot-blooded Italian male.
Can we start off with socks or something?
And finally, got a little carried away with my guide in Rome.
Oh, I've been to one of these before.
France, just 21 miles from Britain, but a world apart. The country we love to hate, yet surely the country we would most like to be if we couldn't be Britain. Home to some of the world's most delicious food, finest wines, stunning architecture, and iconic design. Small wonder then that France is the most visited country on the planet. And to be honest, one I'm rather fond of myself.
When I was at school, I wanted to learn French, wanted to be able to sort of, one day go to Europe and be able to speak French, but unfortunately I did metalwork instead. So I can't really speak French, but I do know my way around the Bessemer converter.
As ever though, I'm keen to discover a side of the country the tourists don't normally see, which in a city like Paris could prove rather tricky. Especially as I've arrived at Le Weekend, where no self-respecting Parisian stays in town. They escape to their rural retreats. The nearby town of Fontainebleau, famous for its 16th century chateau, is a weekend playground for wealthy Parisians and their horses. And though I'm not particularly interested in horses, I'm here because I've been told about one champion show jumper who is just too good to miss.
Good day to you.
You must be Paul.
Yes, I'm Paul. Matthew?
Yes. Nice to meet you. Waiting for you.
I understand you're one of France's greatest show jumpers, is that right?
That's it. But don't stay in the middle because horses are running and it's very dangerous. Come there.
Matteo Nassif has established a daunting reputation on the circuit.
We are in Fontainebleau, which is the top level of French championship.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the place where to be if you want to do horses and jumping. You will feel an atmosphere amazing, this tension.
Yeah, I can already smell it from over there.
But I don't want to be rude, but maybe we can feel this atmosphere just after the show because I have to be ready in 10 minutes.
Oh, right, okay, I'm sorry.
Don't mind, we can speak after?
No problem.
Thank you.
Catch up with you
I
later.
appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thanks.
So as I take my seat for the main event of the day, it's clear that the competition is going to be tough. Even to my untrained eye, the standard looks as high as the fences. And now it's time for Matteo and his team to take to the ring. And you'll notice they appear to have forgotten something. That's because Matteo and his fellow jumpers are horsemen in the literal sense of the word. And Matteo reckons anything a horse can do, he can do better. So this I just have to see. And it would appear that he really can. In fact, they make the other riders look positively over-equipped. One refusal, that'll cost them points. Matteo's team definitely come out on top. And if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it.
Gentlemen, that was fantastic. That was wonderful. That was great.
Thank you very much.
Well done. Congratulations. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Well done. Well done.
And Antoine.
Ah, how pleased to be. Tell me, how long have you been doing this for?
Wow, together it's the first time, to be honest, but the show is 15 years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what gave you the idea to do this?
First of all, it's passion. We're all riders with a horse.
Yes.
And when we try to imitate it, just because we love it, we love to be in the head of the animal.
One thing look, the most difficult just as I was watching it was the fence, the double fence, one after the other.
Yeah.
Yes, what happened there? You slipped?
Yeah, there was water under.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and it just whoops.
So if you break your leg, do they have to shoot you?
Oh yes, we've got many other students, that's why.
Oh, really?
Matty and his team made it look deceptively easy. But I realise, of course, there's a lot of technique involved.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Great Britain, whoa!
So before you get too excited, that's me done for the day.
So you're completely imitating the action of the horse there?
I'm not imitating, I am a horse.
You are the horse,
Yes,
okay.
that's And the next step is the jump. And my technique is very slow, because I've got some powerful legs and I am quite wide.
Right.
So I've got a powerful jump.
Yes.
Boom, boom, boom. I don't need too much speed.
So that's a fairly easy height, isn't it? So once you've got practice at doing that, then you go higher.
I think the goal is not to go high, it's to feel it. When you feel it, after high is not a problem.
Have you ever thought of carrying the horse? The horse gets on your back? That would be the next step.
Okay, British humor.
You could start with a little pony.
It will be better maybe.
Yeah, better with a pony.
Over the years, Matteo has trained up a team of around 27 young horsemen. But at the ripe old age of 29, Matteo's jumping days may soon be numbered. Still, he can always put himself out to stud. Paris is one of the most beautiful cities on the planet. There's something so seductively feminine about the architecture, with one notable exception. And our image of the French is of passion and romance, a love of life or joie de vivre.
Well, we have our own cliches about the English too.
Yes.
We view you as like a little bit posh.
Posh, yes.
Yeah, posh.
I'm often mistaken for the Duke of Edinburgh. It's funny you should say that.
Like we're connected to the royal family.
Yes.
Either posh or really drunk. It's like you can...
Posh or drunk.
That's like the English destiny.
It's possible to be both posh and drunk.
Absolutely.
Olivier is a Parisian born and bred, and he writes a blog about what it's like to live here.
So, many cliches about the city of Paris are actually very true. There's good food, there's very strong cultural life, many artists, and but actually an artist I want you to meet. Right here. Norbert! Norbert.
Hello.
How are you?
How are you?
It's very good to see you again. I would like to meet Paul. Paul, you should meet Norbert.
Norbert, please me. I'm Paul Merton.
Hello, Paul.
Hello, how are you?
Turns out Norbert is a playwright who's established a certain notoriety for some unusual research he recently undertook.
I have an idea. I want to write about panda, and I say I'm going in a zoo. I am going to live with a panda, and during 10 years. No.
That's too long, 10 years.
During 10 days, I live with the panda. And I see him, I eat with him, and I write about that. I am just enfermé, and I'm locked in a cage during this. It's a very good experience.
And this helps you to understand the mind of the panda?
The mind of the panda, no, it's to understand the mind of the human. Yes. About panda, I know nothing. What about you? What you know?
What do I do? I sort of walk around Paris interviewing people who play the accordion. Is what I do.
You look for something.
I seem to be developing a bit of a habit for running off with my guides. I can only put it down to the overwhelmingly romantic nature of this city. Because in Paris, love is not only in the air, it's also on the ground.
Over here, look at this thing on the floor. See? Amour.
Amour?
Here. Yeah, it's on the floor. If you turn around, do you see that little sign over there on the window?
Oh yes.
In this neighborhood, there's this guy. He just writes amour. That's what he does. On the floor, he writes love. I think he lives around here, so there's a few a bit everywhere. See, there's another one here.
Oh yes.
This one is a bit of an older one. Looks like it's gone a little bit. See, there's one here, actually, on the scooter.
All right. Yes.
He does that on some cars and scooters, and so
people don't mind that.
I think it goes away with the rain. So maybe some people mind, but it brings a little bit of beauty and poetry, I feel, to the city.
Yes.
So we're gonna try to find this guy.
Okay.
The man responsible for this amorous graffiti is called Jean-Luc Duez, and these artistic outbursts are said to be his way of coping with a broken heart.
Vous savez où est-ce qu'on peut le trouver? Do you know where we can find him?
Dans les rues.
Dans les rues. À toi, Adam. Ben oui. Bon, ok, merci, monsieur.
And while everyone round here knows his story, finding him is proving rather difficult.
He didn't know where he was.
He didn't know?
No, he said it's written everywhere, but it's like, that's gonna be a hard quest.
Yes.
But eventually, we catch our heartbroken pavement artist in the middle of making love, as it were.
Bonjour, monsieur. On vous cherche depuis longtemps. We've been looking for you. Bonjour. Je m'appelle Olivier.
Bonjour Olivier.
C'est mon ami Paul qui vient de Londres. My friend Paul from London.
Hello. Pleased to meet you. Hello. How are you?
Enchanté.
Enchanté. So it's writing a more there, love. How long have you been doing this for? How many years?
J'ai fait ça depuis 2001. En fait, Amour, c'est principalement depuis...
It started in 2001.
And does he see people's reaction to the words?
Est-ce que vous voyez la réaction des gens quand ils lisent Amour?
Oui, c'est assez étonnant. Vous savez, la plupart du temps, c'est comme ça. Oh, c'est vous! Oh c'est bien, je vous connais depuis tel jour.
So, what began as a series of love notes to the woman who rejected him
Amour!
seems to become a form of therapy for Jean-Luc.
People scream Amour when they see him.
And he even has his own followers, who are presumably also looking to overcome broken hearts.
It's like he's a master Jedi and we are the Padawan, you know? So everybody has to learn, and after he say, okay, now son, you can put it on the floor, you know? And I had my diploma, you know, my exam, like 6 years ago, and I need to, and we used to go out the night. It's better to do it the night between 3 and 5 of the morning, but not the night. And we do cars, we do safety place, and
So I heard that this whole thing started with a broken heart. Someone's asking.
Vous l'avez dit au passé, broken heart, ou vous l'avez dit au présent?
He's asking me if I said it in the past tense or in present. J'ai dit au passé.
Ah oui, ben alors mettez-le au présent.
I say still today. Toujours.
But joining a more anonymous must surely beat joining the Foreign Legion.
Et voilà.
Ça va.
Ah, that's amore. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Vous pourriez essayer.
C'est maybe you could try. We should learn.
For me? Oh, I don't know. Let's see.
Now I fear I'm not going to be very good at this. Not only is my handwriting rather erratic, but my love life couldn't be in better shape.
Constant comme ça, en biais.
But I'm doing my best to imbue the occasion with the necessary gravitas. And it's amazing how nervous I've suddenly become. I feel I'm doing this not just for me, but for the group.
Thank you so much. Thank you for teaching. Thank you very much. It's my first piece of public art, I suppose. It's not graffiti. It's life enhancing, isn't it? Wonderful.
I'm now heading some 100 miles to the east of Paris. My guide, Olivier, has insisted we meet up deep in the heart of the Champagne region.
I can't miss my pony standing in the middle of a field, and he says that this story he thinks will tell me a lot about France. So I'm interested. I'm also interested to see if there's any free champagne going, you know. These vineyards supply the grapes to some of the most famous names in the business. Moet et Chandon, Veuve Clicquot, Lanson, and here amongst the vines of Taittinger is where I find my guide.
How are you doing? Oh, Olivier. It's great to see you, Paul.
How are you today?
Very well, very well. It's a pleasure to have you in Champagne.
Thank you. Why have you brought me here exactly?
Well, I heard you had this little weakness for champagne, so I figured...
Weakness? Well, I don't know if it's a weakness, I consider it a strength. I like champagne.
I do too. I figured I should take you here. It's a beautiful region and there's a lot happening right now. There's like a big revolution. Champagne has been a very static, very successful region lately. The cards are being reshuffled. So there's a lot of drama going on. I thought it would be interesting for you to witness. It's very French.
You make it sound like a soap opera.
It kind of is. It kind of is.
Olivier's story begins here with a visit to the house of Taittinger and its owner, Pierre-Emmanuel Taittinger.
Bonjour. Je vous présente Paul Merton.
Paul, it's a great privilege to welcome you here in the Château de la Marqueterie.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Very pleased to meet you.
Champagne is wine of the happiness. It's not only a great wine, it's a symbol of love, of celebration, of seduction. The only problem with champagne, when we drink it, we are not tired, but we want to make love. But after all, it's not a bad problem.
Yes. Are you allowed to put that on the back of the bottle?
I think we can, you know. We have only one serious competitor, which is Viagra.
Well, it must be a hard life for Pierre-Emmanuel.
Do you want to come inside to taste a few bubbles?
Yes, please.
Of friendship with me?
Yes, please. I would love to. Thank you. Although I'm not sure I should now. We've only just met. The champagne industry as a whole is worth around £4 billion a year. Oh, beautifully opened. And I'm always happy to do my bit to support it.
Paul and Olivier, à votre santé.
Either way, it's a fiercely protected market. And this is where Olivier's drama unfolds. For the first time in nearly 100 years, the champagne boundaries are being redrawn. Much to the delight of one modest wheat farming family, the Henrys. They've just read in the local paper that they may soon be joining one of the world's most exclusive clubs.
So, Appellation Champagne, that's the surface where they can grow champagne. 40 villages, basically, are potentially on the list. And this is Marché Henry, where we are here today.
Well, why this particular village and not the next one along?
Yeah. Pourquoi Marché Henry et pas le village d'à côté?
Ça.
Là, on n'a pas de réponse. On ne sait pas pourquoi ils choisissent.
I don't really know.
I'm sure you don't feel like arguing with them.
We want champagne. Bon, et Margot?
Ça va, Paul? Ça va, Margot?
Oui.
Could you ask Paul, is he looking forward to being a big champagne grower when he grows up?
Et ben ça veut dire que on va avoir des vignes et que je vais avoir du champagne et que je vais
avoir quoi?
avoir de l'argent.
I said, well, it means we're going to have wine, I'm going to make champagne, and therefore I'll have money.
Not all of Monsieur Henri's wheat fields will be within the Champagne appellation, but ironically, it's his poorest fields that will make him rich.
So this piece of land right here, for farming, is worth 5,000 euros per hectare. On that side of the road, that is worth, the day it becomes champagne, 500,000.
Wow.
Multiplied by 100.
Yes. Is he interested in selling me this piece of land right now?
Est-ce que Paul pourrait vous l'acheter, cette parcelle, aujourd'hui?
Non.
So for the Henrys, it's the equivalent to winning the lottery. But where there are winners, inevitably there are losers. Just 60 miles north is the village of Serval, where a very different mood prevails.
I think the meeting is in progress. Bonjour. Bonjour, bonjour.
Local Mayor Serge Mousseau has called an emergency meeting of the local council.
Je vous présente Serge. Serge, this is Paul Merton. Il vient de Londres.
Bonjour. What is the difficult situation?
Here's the map of the region. So basically, see that yellow line here?
Yes.
That is Champagne as it is today.
Yes.
Now with the new rule, the new boundary, these 35 villages are going to be excluded. Apparently they are allowed to make wine,
Yes.
but they are not allowed to call it champagne, and they're not allowed to sell it.
No, let's sell it.
Les droits de vendre.
No,
Family consumption only. So they're being screwed,
Yeah.
basically.
Do they sometimes feel they give up because it's far too difficult,
Est-ce
far
que
too
vous,
hard?
parfois, vous dites, mais bon, allez, on abandonne tout parce que c'est trop compliqué. They're not going to give up, and it took 100 years for the Champagne people to change their boundaries. So if they have to fight for 100 years, they want to keep making wine here and to make good wine because they believe that their wine is just as good as champagne.
Yes. Does it taste like champagne?
Et le vin que vous fabriquez, est-ce que ça a le même goût que le champagne?
Vous pouvez peut-être en faire goûter.
Allez, vas-y! Oh, they're gonna get a bottle.
C'est pour la consommation familiale.
Because it's all family.
Yes. Father!
Well, I feel the least I can do is to drink to the successful conclusion of their fight.
C'est ici.
And though theirs is not the largest vineyard in the area,
Beautiful, isn't it?
I suppose it's the principle that counts.
I noticed the bottle has no label.
C'est un vin qui n'a pas de nom.
It's a wine with no name here.
Pas encore.
Let me propose a toast. Victory to the wine with no name.
Paul veut porter un toast à la victoire du vin qui n'a pas de nom. Allez,
À la victoire.
Oh, it's lovely.
Well, it tastes like champagne to me, and it would be rude to let the bottle go flat.
Merci.
Il est pas goût, hein.
So Olivier's drama has sex, conflict, and fortunes won and lost. And we end our day back at Tatingay, deep within their ancient cellars.
It's cold down here.
yeah, it's 12 degrees. It's
12 degrees.
Yeah, that's what you need to make perfect champagne actually.
Over 20 million bottles of perfect champagne, to be precise. And there's one final twist in Olivier's tale.
Do you agree with the assertion that champagne is a happy drink that cures all?
Oh, very much so. It's the happiest of all drinks.
Is it?
Yeah. But you know, I think we in France we need to have a bit more champagne because I know that people know France is the country of the joie de vivre. I think we're losing this a little bit in France.
Really?
France, for instance, the world champion of antidepressants. People take Prozac,
Really?
Yeah, and wine consumption is actually dropping in France.
So Prozac's going up and champagne consumption's going down?
Yeah, another thing that's going up,
Right.
sexual misery.
Sexual misery? It's a contradiction, sexual misery going up. So what would you say? You'd say less Prozac, more champagne?
Less Prozac, more champagne, and more sex, I think, is a necessity.
Really?
Yeah,
So you think the more champagne leads to more sex?
it's my experience.
Oh, is it really? Do you think mind if I grabbed a couple of bottles on the way out?
Close to Lyon, France's second city, lies the classically picturesque village of Saint-Romain-au-Mont-d'Or. And I'm here in search of one of France's most reclusive and controversial entrepreneurs.
Excusez-moi, bonjour. Vous savez où là se trouve la demeure de Thierry Herman, s'il vous plaît?
I have an appointment, but what I don't have is an address.
Ok, merci.
Because Monsieur Herman has assured us we won't need it.
C'est clair?
Il n'y a pas de problème.
Ok, merci. Donc tout droit. Ok.
Voilà.
Only we can miss it.
Really?
Yeah.
We seem to have missed it so far.
I know.
I'm told he deliberately moved to this sleepy village because he wanted to make a bit of a splash. And he does seem to be very well known around these parts.
Thierry Herman, s'il vous plaît. Ouais. Merci.
Was she saying you can't miss it?
Yeah, exactly.
But this time, it turns out the lady's right. Now I'm guessing the village of Saint-Romain may have been a little shocked by Herman's renovation of their 17th century coaching inn. I presume he didn't bother going for planning permission.
It's a rather spooky-looking place from the outside, isn't it?
The abode of chaos, as it's known, is home to both Thierry Airman and his business empire.
There's a grim sense of death hanging about, isn't there? I wonder what his milkman thinks. Usual double-top Mr. Black Satanic Man.
Thierry Airman was one of the first to harness the enormous power of the internet.
The gates are opening.
He's now a billionaire, and he clearly takes his privacy very seriously.
Hi, sir.
Well, this apparently is one of Monsieur Airman's security staff, together with his handler.
Vous m'attendez ici 1 minute. Je reviens.
What's happening back there? You not eating that bloke, is he? Looks like we're queuing up for dinner.
Monsieur Paul, vous me suivez.
I follow you. Okay.
I've been told that my host has a history of mental illness, is currently embroiled in 500 different legal battles, and is under surveillance by the French government. I knew he should have gone for planning permission.
Ah, merci.
But when I finally get to meet the man who's caused so much chaos,
Monsieur Owen? Yeah, Don Merton? Ah, yes.
I'm surprised by how gentle and unassuming he appears to be.
I was,
Welcome in Abode of Chaos.
thank you. Tell me, what is this place here?
It's mysterious. It's alchemy. But I speak French, please, because it's so mysterious.
I don't
speak French. Sorry.
Right, I don't speak any French.
So, in order to make my visit a little more worthwhile, my lucky researcher Isabel has been drafted in to act as our translator.
This is your business here.
Yes, my business, my house, et c'est aussi mon lieu de travail en tant qu'artiste.
And this is also his place as an artist.
En réalité, je vis dans l'œuvre.
In reality, he actually lives in his own art piece.
I see.
Pourquoi vous êtes ici, Paul?
Why are you here?
Pour faire une rencontre.
To meet you and to understand what it is that you are doing here.
Vous avez vous-même la réponse.
So you got your own answer.
Right. I'm finding it a little hard to reconcile this impish Lord of Darkness with the billionaire businessman. But his macabre world has hidden depths. Deep beneath our feet lies the beating heart of Airman's devilishly clever operation. 900 computer servers cocooned within 3 climatically sealed floors. And the backbone of this empire is ArtPrice, a database which tracks the up-to-the-minute value of more than 100 million works of art across the globe. It's a highly specialised operation, even if his corporate headquarters are a little unorthodox.
This is Hitler as a kid.
Hitler as a kid?
Yeah, Hitler as a kid and Himmler as a kid.
Yes. So it makes a difference from sort of pictures of racing cars and things like that hanging on the wall like a calendar.
It does make a difference.
Do you have staff parties every Christmas?
Yeah, we do.
Do you? Are they sort of like the normal staff parties, or?
Yeah. We're normal people.
Well, I'll take her word for it. But personally, I'd find the decor a little oppressive on a day-to-day basis.
You don't have to be mad to work here, but it helps, to quote the old postcard.
But Thierry's now keen to introduce me to his head of corporate relations, who occupies a very personal role in the Airman hierarchy.
My wife?
Oh, Hello, I'm Paul. Hello, pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet
Hello,
you.
pleased to meet you. How are you?
Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's an unusual place, this.
It's a very unique place. It's our place. It's the work of Thierry. What is amazing is that most of the media describe Thierry as a dark man, as a fierce businessman, a dark warrior. But now that I've been sharing his life for the past 11 years, and well, he really is a good person.
Oh yes,
So
I'm not sure.
he is, and he's very optimistic person.
So Thierry's wife Josette paints a very different picture of the man, and he's now kindly offered to give me a glimpse of what life is like inside the Airman home.
Here is my private life. Work and private life. Yes.
So this is your home?
Yes.
Yes. I like what you've done with it.
Come in.
Although I've not noticed any radical difference in decor here in Thierry's private abode.
Yes, it's my room.
But I never had him down as a fan of Laura Ashley.
This private room.
There is one feature of this room, however, that I'm very surprised by.
And my wife, Nadej.
Your wife?
And Paul.
Hello, pleased to meet you.
Nadej Sherman.
Sure, hello. So this is your wife?
Is my wife.
So it turns out Nadej and Thierry were childhood sweethearts, and she's also vice president of his business empire.
So they have been together for 30 years, sharing extraordinary emotions together, extraordinary adventures, and the abode of chaos is really the concretization of it.
You know, the more I learn about Thierry Airman, the more confused I'm becoming.
Can I ask, you have introduced me to your wife twice, each time a different woman. You have two wives?
Yes, but my life is very, very complicated.
Complicated? How does it work? Does he live with a wife from Monday to Wednesday, and the other wife from Wednesday to Sunday, or?
Comment ça marche? Est-ce que vous vivez avec une femme?
C'est un vrai partage.
That's a real share.
But this is no problem for them?
Non, parce que je suis quelqu'un qui a une énergie extraordinaire.
He's got a fantastic energy.
Energy,
Sounds like he needs it. And now that we're on such intimate terms, there's something I've been meaning to mention since I arrived.
It's for me, it is perhaps a little gloomy here. You know,
La nuit, c'est très chaud. C'est justement quand la nuit arrive que tout s'allume.
Yeah, but it's actually when the nighttime comes that everything enlights.
On s'allume à la bougie. Une partie du temps, c'est les bougies.
You've got candles.
C'est très cosy, c'est homme, sweet home. Voilà.
But nighttime here can be far from cosy, because Thierry likes to showcase his favourite performance artists, and these private soirees are not for the faint-hearted. For me, this would be the stuff of nightmares. But for Thierry, such violent expressions of emotion and the darkness that surrounds him help to keep his nightmares at bay.
Une part de moi est fou, pour la plupart des Français, mais que cette folie m'a permis d'être connu dans le monde entier et m'a permis de me soigner, et de ne pas être à l'hôpital psychiatrique.
He completely accepts his insanity, and this is why he actually talks about it openly, and it allows him not to go to a psychiatric hospital because he actually accepts the fact that he's insane.
And if you didn't have your art, where do you think you would be? What would you be doing?
Je pense que je me mettrai une balle dans la tête.
He would actually shoot himself.
Thierry Airman may well be a genius, and beneath his bleak persona lurks a likeable guy. But one thing's for certain, I won't be buying a house in this village.
all that effort, all that work, all that sort of artistic imagination going into sort of like the worst possible things about life. Why? Why do that? I'm not saying everywhere should be like Disneyland, but I mean, if he had Disneyland, he'd have Mickey Mouse sort of hanging in the corner of a room like that while Goofy shot him. You know, it's just, life is never that bad. You know, there's always a sort of, the good bus of fortune is always just around the corner. That's it now.
I'm now heading south to the Auvergne region. Though France is pretty much the same population as the UK, it's twice the size. And their abundance of land is carefully cultivated, because the French take their farming very seriously. This is the historic town of Puy-en-Velay, and like pretty much every village or town in France, life seems to revolve around the food market. It's an institution here, a chance to touch and taste the freshest and finest of local ingredients, though some are a little too fresh for me. It is possible, though, to take food too seriously. These people are members of an evangelical sect who worship one particular local food, the Puy-lentil.
You seem to be quite fond of lentils.
Oh yes, we are all fond of lentils. It's the best lentils of the whole France.
Really? Les amoureux de lentilles qui l'aiment et qui veulent la défendre.
All of them are in love with the lentils.
I see, yes. For you, the lentil is above all else.
C'est vraiment, tout au long de l'année, on fait des manifestations pour associer la lentille à d'autres produits.
So, George is happy to invite you to a meeting for you to discover the lentils.
Okay, I would be very happy to do that. Yes, very happy.
Actually, I'm not too fond of lentils, but in the interests of hard-hitting journalism, I've headed into the unknown.
It's a bit like Scientology. They sort of grabbed me into their world, the world of the lentil. And they said they're having a bit of a do this afternoon, so they've invited me along so I can discover a bit more about the complex relationship between lentil and man.
This forbidden castle, the Chateau de Bozal, is where the Brotherhood of the Puy-lentil have gathered. And I thought my researcher, Isabel, might like to accompany me.
Oh, hello.
As with the Freemasons, you cannot apply to be a member, you have to be approached by the Brotherhood. But I reckon Thierry Airman would fit right in. The Brotherhood trace their origins back to the court of Louis XIV, where one of the king's valets, a keen gourmet called Nicolas de Bonfons, founded the Royal Company of the Officers of the Mouth.
Ensuite, le grand maître pour cette
Now she actually tests the lentil.
She tastes it.
Yeah.
Noël, qui lui remettra les attributs de sa fonction.
The Brotherhood has 18 members, soon to be 19, and their sworn duty is to protect and serve the Puy-lentil.
She's giving oaths.
I see.
It's swearing that she will help and promote the lentil, make sure that everybody knows about it. So the Grand Master of the Brotherhood is now knighting her.
Knighting her?
There are some 500 culinary brotherhoods active in France today, each one dedicated to a different food. From the mussel to the mushroom, the oyster to the omelette, and the frog's leg to the modest lentil. So secret initiations such as this are being held all over the country.
It's like something out of the Wicker Man.
But the most important event of the day is yet to come. And you've probably guessed what's on the menu.
And if you're from this town and you don't like lentils, are you sort of, are you run out of town, or what happens? Do people ignore you in the street? What happens?
They are forced to eat it.
They have no choice.
No choice.
Though these people are all clearly in love with the lowly lentil, I still can't see the appeal myself. But one doesn't like to be rude.
Long live the lentils!
Now, if they had a brotherhood of the red wine, count me in.
You know, I was really anti-lentil before I came here. I used to have a packet of lentils over, you bastards. But now that I've seen what a lentil can do for people, I'm all in favour of it. Oh, they're all bonkers.
Like the British, the French have a love of pioneering invention, from the hot air balloon, to the bicycle, to the parachute. I'm driving around France now thanks to a Parisian inventor called Rudolf Diesel. And here, in the foothills of the French Alps, I've come to meet a man who hopes to be the next in this distinguished lineup. This rather noisy house is home to Jean-Yves Blondeau, or rather it's home to his mother. For 15 years, Jean-Yves travelled the world, seeking recognition for his revolutionary new invention. But now, at 40 and penniless, he spends his days in his mum's garage.
Well, welcome to my workshop.
Thank you very much indeed.
So,
what do we have here in front of us here?
We have different studies. This is protection.
Oh yes, I see, yes.
Jean-Yves' brainchild is an entire body kit based on the principle of the roller skate.
But the idea is that there's some air, so you can see through.
Yes.
Yeah. It will be mounted with such a thing, and the holes are on the right
So
position.
you're seeing that as an improvement on this one here, yes?
Yeah, that's the improvement, yes. That's
Although Jean-Yves continues tirelessly to fine-tune his design, he has yet to find the backer who shares his vision.
It's about money, because as long as I do my thing by myself, I can just build one suit or two suits or three suits a year and sell up, because it takes me 2 months of work to make one suit. But I will never get into the market like this.
Do you sometimes feel like giving up? Feel like giving up hope?
I did several times, but I came back because I understood that you have battles. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and most of the time you have to restart the fight again, and you have to struggle all the time. I don't know really the right way, but I will find my way. Let me.
Well, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And I'm keen to see his idea in action. But since it takes him a little time to get ready, we've agreed to meet that afternoon down in the town of Aix-les-Bains. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but certainly not the speed in apparition that's now appeared. I'm assuming this is him, but it's quite a transformation.
Jean-Yves, hi Paul. Hi. Well, let's go and have a walk. Yes, come with me. Nice.
This is Jean-Yves' alter ego, Roller Man.
Wheels. You can see I have wheels on my hands, on my elbow, on my knee, and I have on the back, like this. So with that, I can roll in every position. Down.
Oh yes, I see,
I can roll back. Let's go. I can spin.
Oh yes, it's very adaptable, isn't it?
I can come back. Four legs, then I can do like a dog. I really wanted to do something that nobody did before.
Yes, well I think you succeeded in this, haven't you?
I guess so.
To be honest, I'm feeling a little self-conscious, but the good people of Aix-les-Bains don't bat an eyelid.
Would you say this is a bit dangerous?
Dangerous? No, you're really protected. Look, if I touch you like this, it's not hurting me.
No, it's hurting me though.
It's okay.
Watching Jean-Yves bouncing off the walls, I can't help but notice he's a much more dynamic man in his roller suit.
This is ideal for you, is it?
Yeah. do some wood. Oh yes, I see, yes, it was made for it. So, yeah, is this sort of thing that children would enjoy and do? Of course, I think so. Yes. Woohoo. Sorry, I would have liked to have had one of these when I was a young boy. Perhaps not so much now.
Jean-Yves, on the other hand, seems to have rediscovered his teenage years. But it's on the open road that the suit really comes into its own. Roller Man travels at speeds of over 70 miles an hour, just inches from the road, using only his hands and feet to negotiate a hairpin bend. And while it wouldn't be my cup of tea, I reckon it's rather an ingenious invention.
I hope it comes together for him. I hope these suits do take off and there'll be roller men all over the world, roller ladies, roller tots, even roller dogs if the pets like it.
And most importantly, Jean-Yves might soon be able to take his rightful place in France's Hall of Fame. Or at the very least, move out of his mother's house. In the final part of my European adventure, I head to Spain, where I meet a shepherd who spent 50 years building his own cathedral.
Apparently it's going to be ready Monday, or by the end of the week at the latest.
Watch a gentle matador stay in one jump ahead of the bull.
The bull doesn't know how lucky it's been.
And finally become a pillar of the Catalan community.
What happened?
Don't ask me. That's next week at the same time. Now, Robson Green attempts to realise his ambition of catching a monster fish weighing 100 pounds. That's Extreme Fishing, Thursday at 9. And up next, horror. We go back to 1888. Johnny Depp, Heather Graham and Ian Richardson star in From Hell.